Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome everybody to Form Studios here for our Q3 workshop. We're so excited that you guys have taken time to join us here today. Today we're going to be talking about use cases of when and why to use cinema robots. We'll be talking about why SISU is incredible and our preferred choice for cinema robots compared to some others that are out there in the industry. And then we'll be doing a live demo showing you how to kind of program this. It's going to be really fun. And then also just how it integrates with virtual production and with NeRFs. So as usual, we're going to have a Q&A session after this. So if you have questions, make a note on your phone and we'll get to them at the end. If you're joining us on the live stream and you have questions, there is a chat that you can submit them to at any time during the keynote speaker or during the Q&A session, and we will get to those at the end. And then if you are with us in studio, we'll have some hands-on time. If you want to stick around after the Q&A session, you can talk to any of our staff or our keynote speaker and get some hands-on experience as well. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our keynote speaker today. So Mike Morgan is going to be our keynote speaker. He is the head of marketing at SISU Cinema Robotics. He has been with SISU for about 8 years. We have been partnering with SISU since 2020. It's been a really fun partnership for us. Even recently, we got to collaborate in doing a virtual production and robot installation for Cinegear, and we actually got voted the runner-up best booth of Cinegear LA 2023, which is pretty awesome. And so we just enjoyed a lot of really fun stuff with SISU. They've been incredible partners. A partner of ours. And Mike is just super knowledgeable and such a fun guy to hang out with and just pick his brain on all this technical stuff. So with that, please give a round of applause for our speaker, Mike Morgan.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. And a huge thank you to the whole Form Studios team. Thanks for having me out, even though I'm from the great state of Texas. It really is a pleasure to be here. 5 years ago, I went home from work one day and I told my wife, I found it. I found what I want to do with my career. At this point, I had been working at SISU for about 3 years, and I was an engineer. I was on the development team for some technology that would make programming industrial robots really, really easy. And this particular day, we were shooting a video. I got pulled in as kind of the talking head, and we had this guy there shooting it, who's now my good friend and coworker. And as we wrapped that day, he started talking to us about camera robots, and he showed us some videos, and I was fascinated. The creative side of my brain and the engineering side of my brain were just simultaneously blown, and I knew that I wanted to be a part of this and do what these guys were doing with these robots. Now, a lot has happened in the last 5 years, and for the sake of time, I'm gonna just have to skip over a lot of the drama in the interesting parts of the story and fast forward to today to where I am here. And I have thousands of hours programming these robots. I own my side business that is renting and operating these robots, and I'm running the marketing at SISU Cinema Robotics. And I really count myself lucky to be here. Taken a much different path than most of you to get here to this industry, but I do love it. I love this industry, and I love what I'm doing. I feel very lucky. So anyway, that's enough about me. Let's talk about robots. How many of you have worked with a robot before on a shoot, or even just a MoCo rig? Anybody? Anybody? I see a few hands. Okay, very cool. I'd be willing to bet that if I asked you what your experience was, you'd probably say it took a really long time and it was really complicated. Well, my goal for my presentation today is twofold. One, I want to show you that it doesn't have to be that way, that it can be fast and we can move at the speed of production. And two, to show you just how powerful motion control robots can be, especially when paired with something like virtual production. So when we set out to develop this product, we went into it knowing that motion control had a bad reputation of being slow on set, taking forever, and being really complicated. So we took a step back when we said, well, what would be the easiest way to program a robot? We said, well, ideally, I could just grab this camera here and move it around and program it that way, but that just isn't feasible with these robots. There is a type of robot that does that, that's called a cobot, but you lose a lot of the stability and the speed with those. So we wanted to stick with industrial robots. And we said, well, the next best thing is, what if I could hold a game controller in one hand and virtually grab that camera, move it around, and a tablet in the other to do all my keyframing. So that's exactly what we designed here. So I'm holding this wand. When I squeeze this trigger, it's like I'm virtually grabbing that camera and moving it around. You can see I've got full control over the camera. And this just makes it really easy to move the camera around and place it right where I want it. And right now I'm using this joystick that's more like I can drive the camera around. I like to use a combination of both, and it just makes it really, like I said, really simple, really intuitive to place that camera. I've also got full focus control. Let's see here. And I can use the joystick to roll my focus. And there we go. So the idea is, you frame up, you can set focus. I feel like I'm a little Dutch here. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Once I like that, I can hit this button on my wand, and that adds a keyframe to my timeline. Then I can just repeat that process. Let's say I want to do kind of this top-down shot. Just use my trigger again to grab the camera virtually and come to this shot at this angle. Get right over that cup there. Set my focus. There we go. Oop. Yeah, that's good. I'll set that. Now I've got to move. I've got two keyframes, and I can run this. So let's see what that looks like. And I'm just going to run it backwards since I'm already at the end. 3, 2, 1. Robot moves. And there we go. You can see how quickly we're able to program, to move the camera, and set those keyframes. And this is a pretty simple program, 2 keyframes. We can add on, we can go back, we can tweak, we can change how it moves between keyframes as well. So just a quick little demo of an overview of how our system works. We'll definitely get into some more involved programs here in a little bit. But I want to take a step back, and I want to talk to those of you who might not be as familiar with motion control or with robots. And I want to answer the question of why. Why would you ever want to use a robot? Now, a little while ago, I sat down and I just made a list of everything I've ever seen anybody do with these robots. And pretty much everything on that list kind of fit into 4 categories of capabilities. And some of them, there's some crossover, there's some combining of these categories, the capabilities within the different categories. And that's where it really gets exciting, is when you start combining all these capabilities. But let's talk about these 4 main capabilities. The first one is dynamic and precise movement. So short and simple, you can get camera moves with robots that you just cannot do any other way. If we look at this move that I programmed here just a minute ago, how would you normally do that if you didn't have a robot? Could you? I mean, maybe you could hire somebody to create some custom rig. You could get close, maybe. You could attempt it by hand, but it's not going to look very good. It's a 6-axis robot. It has 6 degrees of freedom. So within this bubble of its reach, it can move the camera anywhere and at any angle. So it really lets you capture angles and movements that you just can't do any other way, and tell stories in ways that you weren't previously able to do. I've got a couple of examples here. I love this example. This was a music video shot by our friends in Taiwan, Shadow Magic Films. And I love this example because the camera just kind of dances with the dancers. The movement adds the movement of the camera adds so much to the shot. So just showing off that dynamic movement. Here's another example. This one's was done by Bayonet Media in Indianapolis. I love how this sequence of movements plays an active role in the telling of this story. This is an example of what I would call an animated camera, much like you would animate a camera in After Effects or other animation software. This last example was shot by Dan Chapman in LA. And this is actually an example of using a robot as a model mover. So not only can you get those precise movements with a camera, you can put a product or a light or whatever else you want on the end of the robot and move it. In this case, he used the lens. So that is kind of a quick summary of this first category, dynamic and precise movements. The second capability I want to talk about is speed control. So we've established we can get these unique movements. Well, now we can also control the speed of those. Robots can move very fast, and they can also move very slow. Here's an example. This was shot by Remedy right here in Form Studios. Just imagine this shot. We could do this with a stationary camera. We could do it locked off, but let's see if I can play that again. But just look at how much this camera movement adds to this shot. As the liquid pours out of the bottle, it just adds so much. So what they did here is they put their high-speed camera on the robot, they program that move, and then they just turn the speed up. So they run it at a high frame rate. The camera also moves very quickly, and you get that dynamic movement even with a high-speed camera. Here's another example. So on the flip side, robots can move very slow. You see the guy on the left there seems to be moving very quickly. So in this example, they put the camera at a slower frame rate and moved the robot very slowly. And this is actually a perfect transition into the next capability that I want to talk about, our third category of capabilities, which is repeatability. So these robots are, I think that repeatability is the real magic of motion control. I think it's underutilized and underappreciated. There's just so much you can do with it, and I'm barely going to be able to scratch the surface here about repeatability today. So this robot specifically is repeatable up to 0.04 millimeters. So that means it's going to follow the same perfect path every time, plus or minus half the width of a human hair. So we can pretty much say it's perfectly repeatable. This shot, let me just play that one again. This was, I actually was the operator on this one. So you can see we did a pass with the actor on the bed, the actor as the ghost, the actor as the painter, the actor as the power lifter, and then another pass with the actual power lifter. So being able to create these movements and run those over and over gives the ability to work in layers, right? So I'm sure a lot of you have dabbled in Photoshop and probably use it regularly. In Photoshop, with photos, you can work in layers, right? You can take the pieces that you like from each layer and then composite all those into the perfect photo. Well, since we can move the robot repeatably, we can now do the same thing with video. And that's exactly what we did here. We did several passes, you line those up in your timeline, and you take the pieces that you want from each layer, and you come out with this perfect example of what I call multiplicity, where you've got the same actor in multiple places. I've got another example here. Again, this one shot by Remedy. So same thing. We shoot multiple passes and with different cans, and we see the magic of motion control. Beautiful. On this last example, this one again was shot by Bayonet Media, and they use repeatability to get this beautiful, perfect shot of this product. This is similar to what I would call lighting in post, where you can light things in different ways, in different passes. For example, you light for an edge over here in one pass, then you light for the front of the product and another one, and you can do multiple passes and then composite those into the perfect, beautiful shot. And again, I'm not sure how you would accomplish this final result that we see after a couple of passes any other way. It's beautiful. So again, I barely started scratching the surface of what you can do with this repeatability of motion control. It's so powerful. I want to challenge you. I think that we tend to just think in the realm of what is already possible. The way that we work and the way that we've been working for years, I want to challenge you to start to think about shooting in layers. What can you do with this ability to shoot in layers? And that brings us to our final category of capabilities, which I call integration. So now we have this camera that is controlled by a computer. It's fairly easy to get data into and out of that computer and into other systems. So that means that we can integrate with things like DMX, with Dragon Frame, we can with VFX. We can import, export VFX files. We can integrate with all kinds of rigs, all kinds of technology, all kinds of software, including Unreal, which obviously that's what we're here to talk about today, is virtual production. Virtual production has really taken the whole industry by storm the last couple of years, and it just keeps spreading like a wildfire. And there's some real benefits to it. I'm not going to cover all those benefits right here. I think that was done really well in the previous workshop. If you haven't seen that, you should go watch it. It's excellent. But just being able to combine and merge real life with a virtual world is incredibly powerful. In our setup today, the robot and the LED wall together kind of form that bridge from the real world to the virtual world. From the robot we can input the data, the positional data, as well as the focus and zoom data into the virtual world, and then the output of that is the perfect image on the LED wall. So together, they form this bridge. With SISU robots, we have a feature called LiveLink, which lets us seamlessly integrate with Unreal, and just an Ethernet cable from the robot to the computer running Unreal, and it sends all the data in real time. We also have a new feature that, as of last week, is available to SISU users that is, as far as I know, we're the only ones that can do this. Lag has been a problem with virtual production. There's calculations, and there's everything that happens between the robot, or if you're using a tracking technology, to the output of the video. It takes a little bit of time, so there's a little bit of lag. So quick movements especially have been difficult. But with this feature, we can eliminate that lag. And I'm going to let Sean talk a little bit about this. He's got a lot more experience actually using it.
Thank you. That up? Check. Cool. Yeah, so if you've used Unreal Engine, you've probably heard of LiveLink. It's how we get tracking data into Unreal, whether it's with optical trackers on a normal camera or through a robot. SISU's robot, we're sending positional data to Unreal and also all of our phys data. So on the camera right now, we have focus and zoom being transmitted into Unreal Engine. But like Mike said, it's really hard to get real-time rendering to the millisecond. There's no lag because we have multiple computers, all of our tracking data, all that goes over our network before it hits our wall. And also rendering out these Unreal Engine scenes is really compute heavy. And depending on the scene, sometimes you might have more lag than other scenes. Especially with NeRFs, it's not a baked scene. It's all basically updating in real time, so it has a bit more lag. So yeah, typically if you do a quick like whip pan, you might see some lag. The frustum might lag behind it. Sometimes I'll see robot moves on like an ad, and you kind of see the robot hits really quick, and the background kind of lands like maybe a half stand behind it. But with this new LiveLink delay that SISU has, since the robot knows where it's going to move to, we can have the robot send its tracking data to Unreal Engine before the robot moves. So in our case, we have 200 milliseconds of lag with this scene. So on their program, it's very easy. Just go on there, just type in 200 milliseconds. We go ahead and program the move, and then now it's perfectly lined up with our wall, which just helps make the whole thing a lot more seamless and a lot more realistic. There's one point I was going to make with that. Oh, so one thing you'll notice is while he's live moving the robot, while he's programming it, once we have unroll up, you kind of see the lag then. You kind of see it lagging behind as he's programming. But once he actually hits compile to play back the move, that's when it'll then be in sync. So that's a huge new feature that SISU has, and yeah, I believe that they're the first company to have it, and just solves a lot of issues with virtual production. From that, I want to talk about NeRFs very briefly. I think if I try to get too technical with it, it just sounds like nonsense. But basically, a NeRF is, it stands for neural radiance field. And basically, it's like a 3D scan on steroids. So a normal scan, if you scan an object or environment, it's baked. So if you move through that environment, none of your reflections are updating in real time. Also, normal 3D scans don't do really well with reflections or with glass. It has a hard time figuring out what is through it. Anything that's like transparent, semi-transparent, 3D scans kind of fall apart with that. Also with a 3D scan, if you scan an environment and if there's a spot that you didn't fully scan, you won't have that data in Unreal Engine when you go to play it back. But because the NeRF uses AI, as long as there's information around that area, it can kind of guess what is in that point. So it gets a lot more room when we're in Unreal Engine to move that camera around. And also, the biggest thing is reflections, which you'll see in here as well. As the camera moves around, all the reflections update real time. If you look in the glass behind the bar, all that updates. The bar top is all reflective. Which can be a little taxing on our system. We found that if you just like go and shoot like a NeRF outside where there's no reflections, it runs super easy. But we kind of chose the hardest place to scan with the NeRF because every surface in this scene is reflective, so we have a little bit of performance loss on that. But what's cool with the NeRF is basically you're just feeding the AI data. So in this form, we're basically shooting a ton of video. And then we upload it to Luma AI, which is what creates a NeRF that we can then bring into Unreal Engine. So in this case, we took a Canon C70, one of the ones that we had back here. We stuck it on a gimbal. And basically, we do one circle in the room to get like a rough capture of the whole environment. We then, because we want to show off the bar, we would do just a couple passes around the bar. So we do one at eye level. We then drop the camera down, kind of shoot up, get another perspective. And then same thing, we go high, shoot down, and get a perspective looking down. And then also you can kind of move to other areas. We shot kind of around the left side of the bar, then the right side of the bar. You just take that video file, upload it to Luma AI. It takes about 30 minutes to process, and then you have this NeRF 3D copy of the environment, which is awesome for a lot of shoots. Like if you're shooting, for a restaurant chain or let's say a brewery, you don't want to have to shut down that brewery for 3 days for a shoot, or you might be there having to do late nights shooting in that restaurant. It's very intrusive to their business. So for us, we went into Stillfire. We're there for maybe an hour. Most of that time was spent, we were blocking out some of the windows as some of our own lights. It took about 5 minutes to actually capture the scene. Now we can bring that brewery into our studio and have full control in our studio. We have all of our lights, power, gear, just a lot more freedom and flexibility here than we'd have shooting on site. If y'all want to play around with NeRFs, Luma AI has an app you can download on your phone. It's a free app, doesn't cost anything. Basically, there's multiple ways you can use it. Either you can take a video on your phone, just of a scene, upload that video to the Luma app, and it'll process the NeRF, or it has like a guided process on how to do that. But yeah, it's a free app on the App Store. It's really fun to play with if you want to get into NeRFs and virtual production. And if you have any questions about it later on, I'll be over here. I can show you the NeRF on our computer back here. Yeah, we'd love to chat more about it. But yeah, here's Mike.
Awesome. 20 years ago, shooting a NeRF was a completely different thing. But it is awesome to see how quickly this technology is getting better and better. Just from 2 years ago even, the things that we were able to do then to what we're able to do now has changed drastically. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and bring Johnny. He's the in-house DP here at Remedy. I'd like to bring him on. And we're just going to create a move for you. We're going to kind of show you what the workflow looks like and what that process is, how it's collaborative between me as an operator and him representing the crew. Because that is one of the things that really sets us apart is we're not hiding behind a console like some of the other MoCo rigs do. We are right up here in the action. So take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Hey guys, I'm Johnny. I'm the DP here at Remedy. I was also the DP for this particular shoot and sort of the voice for the client, which is Stillfire Brewery. Awesome place, and like Taylor mentioned, we have some of their beers over there for you to try or take home with you. Out of all the drinks we chose, we picked Coastal Crush, which is their mimosa sour, mainly because the colors and the details of the can, I don't know, just has a really nice, warm, tropical vibe. So that's kind of the one thing we wanted to go with. So once we picked that drink, the gaffer and I started speaking, and we thought it might be nice to sort of mimic a sunrise inside our virtual environment, which is kind of what we tried to do. And so we made some lighting plans and choices and designs to sort of emulate that, to, again, give off that very tropical vacation vibe that you might experience when drinking a mimosa or just at brunch. We also added a couple diffusion filters in front of the lenses, one of them being a radiant soft filter, which kind of gives you that bloomy look that you're seeing on screen. If you look at the highlights, we also added a streak filter, which kind of gives you nice little rays of light in certain places that you'll see throughout the scene. But enough of that. Me and Mike started talking. We started speaking about what is important in this scene and what we should highlight visually. And of course, we want to, do like we want to showcase the environment as it is. We want to see the main table here. We want to see the Coastal Crush beer. We'd love to see the beer itself in the glass. I think it'd be nice to really see some foam of the beer, some of the beads of sweat, and of course our wonderful ingredients that we have set out by our set decorator on there. So going forward, I think we can sort of show you like a rough process of what it might look like between a DP and a camera operator for our SISU robot. So yeah, let's try some stuff.
Let's do it.
So I think right now our camera's in a really nice starting position. It's in a nice little sort of medium wide, and it's establishing our scene, our VP environment. As Sean was mentioning, if you see with Luma AI with this scan, you'll notice as the robot's moving, you'll see the perspective shift. You'll see the focus shift. And you wouldn't get that if you were to just do like a normal video plate or photo plate or just like a baked-in scan. So that's what's really cool about Luma AI. But yeah, so our camera's in a good place. I think it'd be really nice if from the top of this scene, if maybe we push in and sort of highlight the Stillfire logo and the Coastal Crush can. And then, I don't know, maybe from there we can go over the top and see the fruit, or we can go maybe from the left. I don't know, what are you thinking?
Sure, yeah, I like that. Maybe we, if I'm understanding, just kind of do a push in, see these logos, slide to the left, kind of reveal the fruit a little bit.
Yeah, we maybe use the cans as a sort of a foreground passing to highlight the fruit, and then, I don't know, from there we might be able to come up from over the top and see like a top-down view of the fruit that we have here.
Yeah, I like that. We can kind of do a up and over, see the fruit. You want to come all the way around and...
Yeah, maybe as we come around, we maybe like land on a tight of the Stillfire brand, just to see that and go from there. We'll see how that looks.
Yeah, I like that. Let's try it. So at this point, what I like to do, I feel like I understand roughly what he wants. So what I'm going to try to do is just rough in some keyframes as quickly as I can, take 3-4 minutes to do that. And then at that point, we can look at it, and then we can go back and tweak it to our heart's content. So let's start. You're liking this as a first frame, right?
Yeah, looks good.
My focus looks a little soft here. Let me dial that in. Okay. So I'll save this as our 1, and then I'll go ahead and I'll just push in, find our 2. How tight do you want to get here?
I think that's good.
Okay. Again, I'll just use my joystick here to set my focus, and yeah, that looks good. Then I hit that button. I've got this keyframe. I'm going to make sure that this first move is nice and linear. And then I'll go ahead and slide over to the left, right?
Yep.
Okay, and start to reveal that fruit.
Yeah, and I think as we come around on the left, it'd be nice to see the camera start going into that top-down motion.
Start to get a little bit more tilt like that. Let's see. Something in that world?
Yeah.
How's that looking?
And I think maybe we keep the focus on the, I think that's the passion fruit there.
The apple-looking thing?
Yeah.
Perfect. I don't know what a passion fruit looks like, I guess.
Me either.
Okay, so from there, we're gonna start our kind of arc across the top. All right. And I will point out, I'm in programming mode right now, which makes this, it will only go at a safe speed, which is 250 millimeters a second. And then once I'm ready, once we test it and we're ready to run, I can switch it to production mode and it can move at the full timeline speed. How's this looking, Johnny? Do we want to?
No, that's good. I
Back
think.
out a little bit, maybe?
I think we should stay tighter just to avoid
Okay.
any sort of production
Okay.
gear or lighting around.
Sure, can do. Touch up focus again. All right, got that keyframe, and then we'll kind of move around to our final. Or not quite our final, I guess. We'll end up on the logo, but this is roughly kind of the end of this arc. And then let's see, something in here as it wraps around.
Yeah, I think we wrap around to the very front, but just tight.
All right, I'll just say this is kind of an intermediate keyframe. There we go. And then wrap around to the front. Let's see, here we go.
I think we can be maybe a little more at an angle, so maybe track right just a hair,
Okay.
and then go in a little bit tighter.
How do you feel about something Dutch like this?
I like
Is
the
that
Dutch.
cool, or-
Yeah.
okay.
I think we can be even a little bit tighter on the logos just to really emphasize the still fire. And then I like the Dutch, so let's even Dutch it even more.
Something like that?
Yeah, and then I think focus, and then that feels like a good point.
All right.
That's what's really nice is if you're DP working with these operators and with SISU with his hand controller, he's able to really articulate what you're wanting rather than, I don't know, spending time programming that. It's just nice to have that motion control as he's doing it.
Yeah, I do like that it's so collaborative, right? You can be looking over my shoulder as I'm programming and helping guide my framing. All right, so I've got my keyframes. I'm going to go ahead and just run this. I'm going to reset to 1, so the camera's going to kind of flip around here. Since as we moved around, it did a little, got itself a little twisted up like that. So I'll just flip it back around, resetting to 1. I'm going to run this nice and slow. Again, I'm just going to make sure I'm not going to hit anything or anything like that. And here we go, robot moves. Real nice and slow. Okay, so looking good. Can add some focus marks as well. As far as the motion though, how are you feeling, Johnny?
The motion's good. I think it is a little offset at the top, but we can easily fix that if we need to.
Yeah. All right, so this is where we kind of go over the top. We see that passion fruit, you said? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So the way that it figures out, we're actually the safest cinema robot out there as well, and there's several features that we have that nobody else does. And one of those is this watchdog that is constantly monitoring both the speed of the camera, the speed of all the motors, and if it tries to go above a safe speed, it's going to stop it. We've also got this enable switch on the back, so it's very intentional. If I'm not holding this down, the robot's not going to move. So no accidental movements. It's very safe. Okay, so there we are at the end. At this point, I can put it into production mode, and we can go faster. and maybe stop me if there's anywhere you want to make
I
a
think
tweak. Or
the big thing I see is when we wrap around here at the end is that we're seeing some of the lights. So I think if it's, so right about in here, I think maybe we need to keep the camera tilted down more so on the table. So.
Okay. I think to fix that, what I will do, I'll go back. Well, let's see. I can add a keyframe somewhere in here.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And I can just tilt down to add that keyframe. Something like that. Or
even a touch more, I think.
Okay. Kind of see the bottom of the glass.
Yeah.
Okay. And I could throw focus to.
I think at this point.
Or
I think at this point, since it's towards the end, the focus can be on the glass, but towards the top of the wrap, it can be more so on the fruit.
Okay. I think what we do is we would tweak the motion first, and then at the very end we can go back and throw those focus marks. So this is just kind of how it goes. We're tweaking usually 3, 4, or 5 minutes to get the original keyframes, and then we can spend 5, 10, 15 minutes just tweaking it. So here we go. And let me just show you what this last part looks like, so we can make sure we're doing good things as we tweak it. So that's me running it back a little bit. I'm gonna go forward, just kind of scrubbing through, making sure everything looks good. So that kind of dodges those lights that we were seeing and comes back up to land on our logo. You like, does that look better on the motion? Okay.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we can continue to tweak, spend a few more minutes doing that, add some focus marks. We did do this yesterday as well. We went through this exercise. So at this point, I think we're just gonna fast forward a little bit. We don't wanna we're running pretty low on time. We wanna make sure we have time for questions and answers and some hands-on as well. So we're just gonna fast forward a little bit. I'm just gonna pull up this more polished shot that we did yesterday and show you what that looks like. And again, I think we spent another 5 or 10 minutes yesterday to get to this point. And let's go ahead and put it in production mode so we can go faster. And you know what? I'm already at the end, so I'm just gonna run it backward. Here we go. And I can control the speed with my trigger here too. This is second safety, make sure I'm not gonna hit anything since things may have shifted. All right, looking good, looking good. All right, here we go. So we're back at 1, and we're gonna go full speed, full timeline speed. This could be a much faster program, but we've got it set to be about 10 seconds right now. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. All right, pretty crazy, huh? And I'm gonna go ahead and run it backward again. Here we go, so you can see it. So there we go. Thank you. So there's a quick demo of a move. I'd love to spend some more time with you all during the hands-on time. We can program some more moves, get you some experience as well. At this point, I'll go ahead and bring Taylor back to keep this thing moving.
All right, let's give another hand to Mike for that great presentation and live demo. So yeah, at this point, we're gonna jump into a Q&A session. So again, if you're on the live stream, I know we already have a few questions kind of queued from the live stream, but just submit one to the chat. We'll keep monitoring that and pull up the appropriate people. Does anyone here want to kick us off with a question? Just raise your hand. We'll try and just repeat the question through the mics so that the live stream knows them as well. If not, then I'll pull up the live stream. Yeah.
As far as like keyframing goes, is that just something that you kind of have to like figure out as you're going, or is it like a rule of thumb for how many keyframes? It just depends on the movement, I guess.
Good question. Good question. So the question is, as far as keyframing goes, how many keyframes? how do you know how to keyframe, and how do you? Yeah. So the answer is in general, the fewer keyframes, the better. But I usually just divide it up into smaller moves. So this one, for example, we had the first move, so I had a keyframe at our A and our B, and then our third keyframe as we slid over. And then we have an arc feature, so I use that arc feature to get that arc, and then one more keyframe in the front. So I don't know if that really answers your question at all. I think if you want to jump in during the hands-on time, I'd love to kind of walk you through what that looks like. And this definitely was a more involved move. Like I'd say 90% of the shots that I do on set are like 2 or 3 keyframes. Not to say that we can't do 20 or whatever, but yeah.
The focus would be a keyframe as well?
Yes.
Why I ask is coming back with the amount of keyframes, because if I want to move from still fire, but I'm coming around, but I want to keep specific focus. I see you move from still fire to the passion fruit, and I saw the focus,
Sure.
but I want to keep the focus during that movement. So there's still fire, it moves to, I can't read it, the crush on the can,
Yeah.
So within that movement from that first keyframe to the next, would I have to put another keyframe now to kind of keep shifting that focus? You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's almost like you're moving from that, using what you just did, you move from that point to that point, but I saw you shift your focus shift. If I want to keep the focus with a particular movement during that movement, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Are those more keyframes we were putting in, as she's asking?
Yeah, so the question is if we wanted to focus a little more tightly as we move between keyframes.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I can show you here, there's different channels here on our interface.
Cool.
One of those is a focus channel. So I can move any of these keyframes around independently.
Sweet.
I can add keyframes on any specific channel.
So for the face, each of them would be on a different channel?
Yes, it can. It can be. A basic program, they're kind of tied into other channels, but you can split them out and have that fine control.
Because if you want to do, there's camera movement, but there's the zoom movement.
Yeah.
All right.
I see where you're going with that too. Yes, you can definitely do that.
Let me get one from the live stream here, and I'm actually gonna start bringing around the mic. That way, everybody in the live stream can hear you guys as well. Okay, so first question live stream was from Austin Glass. So this might be an answer for Sean. How do you determine how much delay is necessary? Do you eyeball it, or is there a more precise way of dialing it in? So he's talking about the delay in the live link.
You might have a more technical answer, but I eyeball it. I can't have in-display tell me how much lag is going between Unreal and I guess the output, but again, there's other delays and that factor into that with the whole network and all that stuff. So yeah, you can just go on there, just ramp it up a little bit higher. If it still seems like a lagging behind a little bit, just add a bit more. But yeah, I'd say eyeball is probably the easiest way because every scene's a bit different. So yeah.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's probably some very technical way that you could calculate it, but I think the way I've seen it done is you program a quick whip, and you can even roll on that and kind of look at the time code and see, roughly what that time is between the camera stopping and the environment stopping.
All right, I saw a question. I'm going to come to you first here.
When it comes to keyframing, can you change the interpolation of, say, like a linear move or an easy ease move?
The interpolation, as far as what I'm understanding, is like the way that you move between those?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so there's some different move types. You can adjust, you can use a linear, you can use a path move, which is more of like the Bezier type curve. And then there's a couple other types of moves as well that you can use.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some like easy ease you can essentially put on it, right, to control kind of each keyframe.
Yes.
Let's see. I'll take one more from our live stream. Where did I go? Okay, so in this comes from Jonathan Weimer. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right. In past production, in which this combined technology was used, so the LED wall and the robot, what was the talent's reaction to it when programming the moves, whether using the actual talent for an indie production or stand-ins?
I'm sorry, I missed it. I zoned out.
Is it easy for you to read it there?
Sure.
Right there? So basically, how are actors reacting to this kind of combined technology when you're on set?
That's a great question. Are we talking about combined technology with virtual production?
Virtual production and the cinema robot.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun shooting talent with a robot. It's new to a lot of people, so there's that wow factor. But also with virtual production, I think, especially as compared to a green screen, I'm not just going to say it's better than a green screen, but there are some benefits, and that is one of the benefits, is for the actors to be able to get a much better visualization of the environment that they're in, and how that compares with the robot too. Just with that motion as well, it kind of plays into their performance as well.
Yeah, we've experienced very similar things. Actors can be wowed a little bit, but with virtual production, it's a lot easier for them. And then they just sometimes take a minute to get used to a robot just because it's fun to watch and kind of see how it all works. I believe you had a question, right?
So my question really relates to the camera, and is it a particular camera you use with the robotic? And part two to this question, let's say that is it mostly zoom lenses you work with on the robotic, or if you're starting a scene and then the DP wants to change the lens, what's the time frame for that?
Good question. Okay. So first answer is you can use virtually any camera on here, as long as it's under, I think the payload of this robot is 36 pounds. So as long as you're within that payload, you can use, it's camera agnostic. You can put your camera on there. And then as far as lenses, to swing a lens, what I typically do for a shoot is if we have a pre-light day or a prep day, I'll come in and just map all the lenses. So it's usually like a 5-minute process for each lens, where, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with mapping lenses, where we're basically just telling the robot each mark on the lens, and then that way on shoot day, to swing a lens, it's pretty much instant. All I have to do is select that lens mapping, and we're ready to shoot.
And once you've mapped a lens, it's saved. And so like all of our in-house lenses, we mapped one time. And so anytime we have a shoot, we don't have to go and map that lens again. It's already just saved in the program, which is really helpful too. I got a few questions about rental costs. I believe someone also asked about purchase. So purchase and rental costs for productions. I would assume they're talking mostly about the SISU robot.
Yeah, purchase costs ranges between about 120 and 170, 120,000, 170,000. We've got 3 different models. So this is our medium model. It's a 2-meter reach. We've got a model that's smaller, a model that's bigger. This C20 model also can run on track, which is a modular track. And that means you can basically have as long of a track as you need. So that's kind of the price range, 120 to 170 for purchase. We do have lease options as well. Rentals, typically, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Sean, do you want to give rental costs?
So for us in-house with the robot, it's $5,000 a day for the robot and a tech. If you go off-site, there's a little bit extra cost, which we do take the robot off-site a good bit. For virtual production, the stage is around $8,000 a day. Kind of just depends on if you're using video plates, NeRFs, or just full Unreal Engine. But yeah, $5,000 for the robot, around $8,900 for the VP stage.
You have tracks in here as well?
What's that?
You have tracks in here as well?
For the robot?
Yeah.
We do not have a track system for our robot. SISU does have a track system now for it. Maybe at some point. But
so if it's needed here, that's something that we could arrange.
Yeah, for our size stage that we have, especially because we're doing a lot of virtual production, we can't really take the robot too far back, so we shouldn't pass the top of it. So it's just not a need that we really had here because we're trying to focus more on product-based stuff.
All right, anybody else have one in studio here? I know I got a few more online. Yep.
This is a silly question maybe, but the interacting with the virtual production and stuff like that, is the sensor built into the camera? Is it built into the SISU stuff, or how do you interface with the virtual software?
Are you asking about like how like the camera tracking?
Yeah, camera tracking.
Yeah. So the question is basically how is the information of where the camera is in our physical world being relayed to our virtual world?
Okay, great question. So one of the things that we do when we first mount a camera is we take a couple measurements and we put that into our software so the robot knows exactly where the camera is at all times. So it's all based on the robot. There's not any tracking or anything. It's the robot's controlling the position so it knows and it can stream that data out.
Yeah, someone had a similar question on the live stream. And so actually, if it's within Unreal, you can actually see like the camera in Unreal moving and matching like the same movement. So it looks like it's the animated camera on the Unreal side of things as well. Yeah, Sean can talk a little more depth. Will you open your body more to the camera, please?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking to you guys. Yeah. So within Unreal Engine, there's a in-display config, which it knows the size of our wall and also knows where our 0 point is. So in here, 0 point is kind of around where the robot is. So basically, the robot knows where the camera is from its 0 point. And then in Unreal Engine, we put where the robot is based off our 0 point. So that way, this camera aligns with our virtual camera within Unreal Engine, which is how you see the frustum lined up with it perfectly, if that makes sense. It's basically just 0 points and just everything is all just inputted into Unreal Engine. I can show you that later. It makes a lot more sense when you actually see it visually.
I'll go for another one on the live stream here. So let's see. How long, this is from 56 Pics, how long would it take an operator to learn the system well enough to execute the shot, including setup?
Good question. So when we sell one of these or lease one, it does come with training, 2 or 3 days, whatever you feel like you need. I usually tell people, within that training, you get to know everything you need to know, and another 3-4 weeks just playing with it, you feel really comfortable being able to use it on a set, on a real shoot. So it is really intuitive, but it does, like anything, it takes some getting used to. So I'd say 3 to 4 weeks you feel really comfortable. And then what was the second part of that question?
No, that was basically it.
Okay, cool.
And I would say too, from personal experience, if you have a background in NLEs or post-production at all, it's going to feel really, really easy, just because you're working with timelines and just some programming things. And if you've done anything like After Effects with keyframes, I would say it's probably even faster than that, just because it feels very intuitive compared to other programs you might be used to.
Yeah, and I would say that is one thing that really sets us apart as well. I think with a lot of the other systems out there, it takes months to really get the hang of it and understand what's going on. So,
I now have a few more on the live stream. Anybody in here? No? Okay. Let's see. From Andrew Roz, Mike mentioned an arc move, but was he building one in the demo today or only in the polish shot from yesterday?
I did build one in the demo as well.
Beautiful. Let's see. Can you export the motion file or import a motion file from PG Johnson?
You say that again?
Yeah. Can you import or export the actual motion tracking VFX file?
Yes, we can. We can import FBX files, so you could create something in, say, Maya. You can create that camera path, import it, and we can run that on in the real world with the camera. We can also, this path that I created here, we can export that out of our software and bring that into whatever software you like to use. We can also export an Unreal script, so you can get that motion in Unreal.
Yep, I'm gonna bring the mic.
Yeah, what would be the benefits of mapping out a camera movement in Maya versus just doing it with the analog stick in person?
Yeah, that's a good question. we've had some people do some really interesting things. You know, a lot of times they're already working within Maya to you know, with their VFX and their animation. So it's just easy to do that within Maya and then bring it into the robot. We've also had people use Maya to animate dinosaurs, and they would actually put a dinosaur on the robot, and so that one was really cool. But it just gives you that extra flexibility and capabilities.
Sean, I think this one will be for you. How do you select, this is from Redline Studios, how do you select the depth of field of your Unreal Engine 5 background? So the lens, when you have an object in foreground, is sharp and the background is blurry. But I see in this demo the LED wall is blurred.
Yeah, I'll try to explain that a little bit. Yeah, it's a camera. Yeah, so we're sending focus data into Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine knows what our focal length is at, and also where focus is at too. It knows the iris and all that. You have to kind of emulate depth a little bit with this stage because our LED wall is right here, maybe 10 to 12 feet from camera, where in the real space it'd be a lot farther than that. So we have to add some bokeh, even if it should be fully in focus, just to help emulate that depth. So it's kind of like always low out of focus, but yeah, as you roll more to the drink, you'll see it fall out a lot more. I mean, also with virtual production, you never want to focus on the LED wall. Anyways, you always want to keep that focus a little off of it, just so you don't have like moire issues. But yeah, a lot of that focus you're seeing on there is more just to help emulate just how small our stage is and just make it seem like there's more depth to it. That's just a way to use it, yeah.
Follow up, how do NeRFs hold up to sharper focus?
Again, we're never really fully focused on the wall, so I don't feel like you ever need the NeRF to be like, hyper sharp. Again, it's NeRFs are kind of they're in alpha right now. It's still very new. I think as the technology progresses, you'll probably get a much sharper image. I think that is the goal, is for it to be like photorealistic. But right now, it's not bad. And also, it really depends on where you're shooting. Again, this scene right here has a lot of reflections. It was a lot harder for the AI to figure out what was what. I shot one outside. It looked, really, really good. So it really depends on the environment you're shooting, but also it's just very early tech. We'll just keep improving. And like I mentioned before, you can always go and re-upload the capture that we took at Stillfire. We can go and upload it in 6 months, down the road, and we'll probably get a much better result on our wall. So it's always improving.
So I actually rolled focus closer to the wall, so you can kind of see. I think actually a lot of the square pattern and that kind of grid you can kind of see. I don't know if you can see it over here or not, but I think that's actually due to the filter that we have on the lens right now. But so it's pretty good though.
Yeah. All right, we got time just for I think a few more, 2 or 3 more. This should be a quick one. Mike, are all robots able to plug into household power? Great
Question. So our C14 does run natively off of wall power. We also have a new product. Well, let me back up. C20, C31 do take a higher voltage, but we have a new product that is a battery box that lets you plug your robot into the battery box. You can run all 3 of our robots, 4 with the track. You can run all of those off of just a battery, and that gives you roughly 8 hours of usage on battery. You can also plug that into the wall itself and run indefinitely. So technically, yeah, you can run them all off of wall power.
Is that like a lunchbox, like a Cinebox?
It's about this size, maybe just a little bit bigger than this. So it's really nice to not have to worry about power. So.
Last one from the stream, and if there are any more questions, you can go to our website, formstudios.com, and email us through there, and we'd be happy to answer more. Has the SISU robot been combined with a camera vehicle for programmed movements, and if so, what were the results?
We get that question a lot. I haven't seen it yet, but technically it can be done. there would definitely be some challenges to that, mainly mounting and powering it in a vehicle. But yeah, we get that question a lot.
Okay. Someone's got to be the first one.
Somebody's got to
try.
be the first one. Maybe these guys.
Maybe.
Talk to Sean later.
Anybody else? No? Great. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our Q&A. We appreciate you guys being here and joining us on the live stream. Please remember we have lots of donuts and lots of beer. Please take some. We do not need all of that in our office. I'll put it that way. Be on the lookout for our Q4 workshops. We're doing one more this year. It should be in early November. We haven't decided fully what that topic is going to be because we're going to send out a feedback form to everyone who's registered just to hear from you guys. If there is a topic that maybe you want us to cover like more in depth that we've touched on before, or if there's something we haven't talked about and you would like us to talk about it, we want to hear from y'all to really land on what that last one is going to be. Like I said, it should be early November. So we're about to end the live stream, but again, you're welcome to hang out as long as you want to, talk to any of our staff, which are basically all the people in that corner, and Mike here, and we'd be happy to do some hands-on demonstrations and just answer any questions or just chat and get to know you. That should be it. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Awesome.
So separately, training.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys like set up for a facility for training for anybody who just wants to do a 2-week workshop, whatever? Instead of them being customers first.
Gotcha. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We occasionally do that. Yes, we held one and.